Hey everyone, good afternoon. This is Chaya, and I think I'm here. We'll start in 3 o'clock. It's in about 6 or 7 minutes. Just thought I'd pop on and let you know I'm here. And feel free to put anything in the comments. Let me know you're here. If you have any questions about yoga and Ayurveda, you can put them in the comments. I'll try to answer them. And also, you can put in the comments how much you may know from 0 to 10. How much do you know about Ayurveda? Somewhere between 0 and 10. So we'll just give it a few minutes, and I'm excited to share with you my experience and some information about the wisdom of Ayurveda for yoga and improving your practice and your life. I'm not usually early, so this is new for me. I'm usually flying in at the last minute, so I've had a relaxing Saturday, and I hope you've all been enjoying the festival all day and taking a little break, get some water. You may want to have a notebook, and you may want to go to the link I put in the comments and download the handouts for this talk. There's a bunch of resources on that page, but for this talk, you may want to complete the Ayurvedic Dosha questionnaire and download the information on forms of prana. And if you haven't yet gone to the link for Yoga Loka to make a contribution, you can we have 5 more minutes before we're going to get started. So there's time for that as well. Can you all see me and hear me okay? So we'll start in just a few more minutes. If you're just coming on, thanks for being here. I see Liz and I see Jacqueline. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. There are handouts on the resource page. There's a link that I put in the post. I'm real excited to get started, but we'll wait about 3 more minutes. Maybe I can start telling you a little story before we begin. So maybe you've heard this story. It's an ancient Vedic story. You walk into a room and the room is dark and you see something coiled up on the floor and you react, oh my gosh, it looks like it's a snake, and the whole body goes into this fight or flight mechanism. And then you turn on the light and you see, oh, it was just a piece of rope. So this snake rope story is so much about yoga and Ayurveda and how we perceive life. And, that whole concept of, turning on the light, it's like opening up the blinds. You could just go outside. So that's kind of like when you walk in a room with a flashlight. A dark room, if you're shining the flashlight just on one thing in the room, does it mean nothing else in the room is there? You just don't see it. So it's kind of how we walk through life. And yoga and Ayurveda are the science of life to help our perceptions be illumined more fully for deeper integration and realization. And so this story I tell a lot when we think about what are the root causes of disease and what are the goals of Ayurveda and yoga, is to recognize that we are in this state of often just seeing from our conditioned patterns. It doesn't mean we're always going to get it right and always see clearly, though that may be part of the goal, to even just recognize that this is what the nature of the mind does. How often we do that. It's kind of like, making assumptions. So that's a little story. And we'll start in about another minute. And I'm going to start just chanting the first 3 sutras of the Yoga Sutras. Those of you that practice yoga may be familiar with them. And so Hatha Yoga, which is the first sutra, it actually is a prayer that unifies our life experience. The first chapter of the Yoga Sutras is about coming into harmony. And that can be interpreted in so many ways. So we're going to talk about that in the next 45 minutes. So we can just start. If you don't know it and you're not familiar, you can just listen. My teacher always said, you don't have to know the meaning. It's you absorb something just through the singing, the chanting, the tonation of it. So taking in a breath, exhale, relax. Hatha Yoga Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha Tada Drashtu Sparupe Avashtanam. So Ata means ready. Being ready. It also is also means a prayer. So like a prayer of readiness, and Anushasanam is life experience. So bringing together our life experience, and also as yoga teachers to teach to your students based on their life experience as well. So knowing where you're starting from to know where it is you want to go. And when we think about Ayurveda, so I have this board here. I'm going to make some notes. So Ayurveda, Ayur means life, and Veda means to know. Now, in Sanskrit, Veda is to know beyond ordinary perception. Regular knowing is just vid. Vid is just typical knowing in your ordinary state. But Veda is knowing beyond ordinary perception. So yoga and Ayurveda are about getting into states like I was talking about the rope snake story, where we see beyond ordinary perception. So when we think about what is life and what is yoga, so life is defined as the intelligent integration of your body, your senses, your mind, and your soul. I'm going to write that over here. Your body, your senses, your mind, and soul. And it's the intelligent integration of the body, senses, mind, and soul. So the mind can go in different directions. The mind can go to, I want to go out, I want to get pizza. Or the mind can be, go towards things that the soul likes, things that are nourishing and wholesome. Whatever direction your mind goes in, that your action that you take is going to affect your senses, your sense of sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And how you treat your senses is what impacts the body. So the senses are our doorways to perception, our doorways to Vata. So how we live our life, yogic lifestyle, will affect how much of Vata we can get to, and we can get to maybe step by step towards realizing who we actually are. And this is some of the process of yoga. We talk about yoga meaning unity, integration, and we can talk about that on many different levels. But for right now, we can look at it in terms of life being defined as the intelligent integration of the body, senses, mind, and soul. So I'm going to come back to this in a little bit. So to know life, we can start with some basic understanding of looking at who we are in relationship to everything else. So Ayurveda and yoga both have an integrated vision of the universe and the individual human being. And when we understand what we're made of and how we ebb and flow and change, then we can talk about also more refinements even in our yoga practice. So when we look at the elements that we all are made of, we have ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And each of these elements have qualities to them, and they all have functions. So they combine to perform these functions in the body. So ether and air combine and make what's called the Vata dosha. Doshas are things that are always ebbing and flowing, going in and out of balance. Fire and water is going to make the Pitta dosha, and water and earth is the Kapha dosha. So I'm just going to give a little quick overview on doshas because, a lot of people maybe already know a little bit about doshas, and Ayurveda and yoga is then, we're going to see how to apply it a little more fully. So I apologize if this is too fast for some of you. Maybe you can put it in the comments if you want me to slow down, or give me a thumbs up if you kind of already know some of this stuff. So Vata governs movement. So we're going to be talking about that in terms of postures, but also pranayama and how we direct movement. So we're going to talk about the 4 sub-doshas of prana in just a minute. Pitta governs digestion, it's heat, it's fire. It governs our ability to digest food and also our life experience. So digestion is also transformation and the light or flame of attention. Kapha is water and earth, and Kapha governs your structure and your stability and your lubrication. Now, what's interesting, when I mentioned the senses earlier on, so people that have a lot of the ether and air element, this has to do with sound and touch. So we hear ether through the ears in sound, and air, we feel it when it blows on the skin. So this has to do with touch. So people with a higher Vata constitution are more sensitive to sound and touch, and they also take the world in through those senses. They're more kinesthetic. And Pitta people, fire, we can see fire, they're more visual. So Pitta people are more visually oriented. They want to see everything. So they're good with charts and graphs and organization in that way. And Kapha people, this is water and earth is associated with the sense of smell. Often Kapha people, though, have a reduced sense of smell. So we can see that we already start to see how our elemental composition affects how we perceive life. We can all be in the same room, listening to the same talk or in the same class and all experiencing it differently. You know, we all are different ways of learning as well. So maybe, you know, we're going to have different truths because we're going to be seeing things differently. It's going to shadow and color our experience. So we can see that the different doshas affect how we perceive and also the jobs that they do, and they ebb and flow through different times of day. So they elevate. Vata elevates between 2 and 6. Pitta is between 10 and 2, and Kapha is between 6 and 10. So this is how we would organize a basic daily routine so that you're living with the flow of the elements. You can see it clearly at the way the sun moves. So we'll see the sun as the quality of creation in the morning, and then around noontime it's high in the sky. That's when our digestive fire is the highest and we should eat our biggest meal. And then the sun sets and it goes down. So we don't have strong digestion in the morning or in the evening, but we have strong digestion around noontime. We have the qualities of Vata at sunrise and sunset. And if we look at indigenous or ancient spiritual cultures, you'll see a lot of spiritual practices usually done at that time. This is a very subtle element. Ether and air are more subtle. And so we have more success with tapping into the more subtle aspects of life. Also, it governs movement. This is when the mind wants to move, the body wants to move, the bowels want to move. So you want to get up and move at that time. And 6 to 10 for Kapha, that's when you want to be in the structure of your day. And Kapha is, you know, I'll go through a little bit of the qualities. So ether and air, light, dry, rough, mobile like the wind. It elevates also in the fall. And Pitta is hot like fire. It elevates in the summer. Hot, intense, passionate, type A, driven type of people. Whereas Vata, we have more movement. We have more changeability like the wind. There's always change in a Vata world, and they're more dry. Their joints will creak, crack, or pop. They may have one side of the body different than the other side, more prone to scoliosis, anxiety, nervousness. So a yoga practice for them is going to look a little different than a Pitta person who's a more athletic build. They're more competitive by nature. They thrive in that type of work. So they may need a different type of yoga practice that's a little strong, but they don't want to overdo it. Their tendency is to do 30% too much. So a good mantra for Pitta is to do 30% less. You need to give them a little of what they want and satisfy them, and then give them a little of what they need. Kapha people are earth and water, kind of sluggish and heavy, like they have bricks on their body. They have a harder time getting going. They're the ones who just want to kind of, you know, watch TV and hang out on the couch or, you know, do the yoga that doesn't have to move too much. Really, like increases like, and the opposite brings balance. So they are the ones that really need to move. And so, but once you get them going, then they feel better and they feel energized. So, and Kapha is higher in the spring when it's more damp. One other thing to note is these doshas ebb and flow not only with the time of day and the season, but stage of life. So when we're baby stage of life, when we're born, we can see all of this Kapha, baby fat, chubby, they love to sleep, and they're so full of love. This is the refined form of Kapha called Ojas. And this is our ability to love and be loved. And it also has to do with our immunity. So having a healthy Kapha, which we're born with, this essence, you can see in a baby, this juice and essence of love. As we get older into adult, stage of life, Pitta goes up. We need to summon our Pitta to be more responsible, take care of our families, be a little competitive perhaps in the job. And this is a Pitta nature. And then as we get into old age, Vata elevates. We get more dry, rough, and wrinkled, so we have something to look forward to. But we also start to appreciate the more subtleties in life as we age. So Ayurveda is known as the science of rejuvenation and longevity, understanding how the elements are going to ebb and flow through the day, through the seasons, and through our stage of life so we can prepare. We also want to understand where we're starting from, and this way we can see, it's not like we want to all be equal Vata, Pitta, Kapha. That's not the goal. We're all born with different amounts. So it's determined at conception. This is your DNA. So this is like a genetic study of genetics and epigenetics, of how your diet, your lifestyle, your way of being in the world, the way you perceive and live is going to affect how your genes get turned on or turned off. Is a more modern way of speaking about it. In Ayurveda, we may use older concepts to discuss a similar idea. So the ancients knew a long time ago, they could see these things and how things ebbed and flow, and we're a microcosm of the macrocosm. When the tides are high, we have more of a water in us. So that's a little bit of understanding our nature, where we're starting from. And this doshic element is going to affect really also how we think, the state of our mind. So a Vata person may be more anxious and nervous and worried. They're also very creative when they're imbalanced because their mind moves. And they're used to change. They're always changing because their digestion is up and then it's down. It's windy in there. And so they have an easier time with things always changing. They would have a harder time with a set routine. Pitta people, on the other hand, are very goal-oriented. They're like type A people, and they get up early, they hit the ground running, they want to get a lot done. So if they start to do too much and their Vata elevates, then they start to feel Vata symptoms in a Pitta person. And this is like some imbalance. They don't like that. So they will start treating it. And what often happens is you can have a strong Pitta person starting to get these increase of Vata going up. They start to feel spacey. They start to not sleep as well, maybe get gas, bloating, constipation. And so they get ungrounded. And what happens? Kapha tries to balance that Vata and ground them out. And so we see a lot of people going back and forth from extreme to extreme, doing things that they think they're being very good, going to the gym a lot, maybe eating a lot of light food, dry food, or working a lot, staying up late. These things will increase Vata. And then what happens? Kapha comes in, you get exhausted. Then you want to sleep all day, eat heavy food, get yourself grounded. And after a few days of that, that's too much. And people will go back and forth and not realize this is what's happening in the middle. We want to try to just come into somewhat of a balance. So knowing where you're starting from is important. You want to maybe have a consultation, or you can use a doshic questionnaire is just, I think, a good teaching tool. It's good to have a more objective person looking in and knowing how to translate what it's going on. But that's definitely a good place to start from. I'm going to talk a little bit about the sub-doshas of prana and langana and brahmana. And so I'm going to erase this. And so in Ayurveda, no matter what it is we're doing, any type of program we may create for a person, we always look at where they're starting from. It's very personal and individual. And one of the handouts that was there is the Principles of Ayurvedic Medicine, talking about Langana and Brahmana. So I'll write it up here if you didn't have a chance to print them out or open them up. Langana and Brahmana, and Brahmana. And you'll see it spelled different in different places. So Langana and Brahmana is like yin and yang, and I mention that because I think, you know, it's familiar. People have heard of yin and yang. Langana and Brahmana is Ayurvedic similar view, and we use this concept when we put together yoga practice or a healthy diet or a panchakarma. We look and see where's the person starting from. Are they skinny mini Vata people where their nervous system is affected? Are they Pitta people that have pushed very hard? Or are they Kapha people with a lot of excess accumulation that they need to get rid of? So you want to see where they're starting from, and that's how you would coordinate it. Now, Langana Brahmana is also a great metaphor for the nervous system. So when we're practicing Hatha Yoga, so Hatha Yoga, you have Hatha Yoga is sun and moon. And this is the nervous system. So this is the sympathetic, and the parasympathetic on this side. Parasympathetic. I'm talking faster than I can write. So you have the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, and Hatha Yoga is a practice of integrating the nervous system. The breathing is a feedback loop that works with your mind and the nervous system. And so we can use different ways of movement and breathing to harmonize the nervous system. We can see people that are more Vata or Pitta are going to benefit initially from a Langana practice, and a Kapha person is going to benefit more from a Brahmana practice. Now, if a Vata or Pitta person starts practicing too much of Yang, too much of Brahmana, eventually it can have a reverse effect. So a Langana practice is going to be more calming, more cooling, more relaxing. And it's going to have a focus on exhalation and holding after exhalation. And the Brahmana practice is going to consist more of back bends that create more heat, more expansiveness, more of moving of the vayus, which I'll talk in a moment. And let's see, so it's going to have back bends and a focus on inhalation, a focus more on inhalation and holding after inhalation. So you can tailor a practice just by changing the pace, the rhythm, and the breath. So if you're, say, a Vata or Pitta person, this would, and also Langana postures are more forward bends. Forward bends are more calming and cooling. Forward bends and back bends in general are more heating. Side bends and twists are also fairly cooling. So they would fall on the Langana side. Now you can it doesn't mean you never do both, but you may focus more on one or the other. You may have a warm up and a cool down with your main pose being one or the other. So for example, if you're Vata or Pitta, you may not want to finish with a back bend. You may do a back bend, don't hold it as long, but finish with a forward bend or knees to chest. And vice versa for a Kapha person, you may find they feel more energized after doing a back bend. So these are just some general examples of Langana and Brahmana. So you can coordinate the rhythm of it with the breath. So for example, a sun salutation is warming and heating. So it will be a good pacifying practice for your Vata person, but you can change it by how you move with the breath. If you focus on inhale, longer, hold after the inhale, and a shorter exhale, you're going to have more of a Brahmana practice. Whereas if you flip it around and you focus on exhale, more of an exhale, you're going to have more of a Langana practice. Even if you're just sitting and breathing in a seated position, you know, you can shift your mind, your physiology, your nervous system by shifting the breath. And it's always good to begin your practice just noticing where you're starting from today, and then what your goal is going to be. You know, is it late at night and you want to relax, or is it in the morning and you want more energy, so that you would shift what type of practice it would be, Langana or Brahmana. So also when we think of sun, it's more masculine. The Brahmana is like the sun. It's a more masculine, more expansive type of practice. And the Langana is more contracting, more catabolic in nature. It's calming. It reduces tension. This is the Langana. Reduces tension, insomnia, fevers, a hot temperament, chronic pain, headaches, irritability, and different autoimmune issues and anxiety, balancing hot types and emotional types on this Langana side with forward bends and focus on exhalation. And then for Brahmana, this helps with people that feel sluggish. So it's helping to dispel fatigue and sleepiness and lethargy. It gives heat, so it dispels coldness. It's good for circulation. It's good to relieve edema and congestion and obesity, and for a Kapha type of asthma. Now, when we look at the four pranas, so when we think of Vata, Vata is wind, and we have pranayama. So wind can move in 5 directions. And what I thought was very interesting, prana, the life force in the breath, we call it the panch pranas. So their panch means 5. And according to modern physics, they recognize 4 types of forces, which are like nuclear force, electromagnetic force, electroweak force, and gravitational force. However, according to Ayurveda, 5 forces uphold all of life, and these are called the panch pranas. And so these are the sub-doshas of Vata. Vata is wind. And so I'm going to draw, all right, my artwork is not, please be forgiving on that. But so we have Udana is more centered in the throat. Prana, well, prana comes in through the nose, but then it's kind of centered in the upper body. And then samana is around the belly and digestion. And apana is lower body, apana. And the all-pervading is vyana, and that is from the heart, and it goes all around the body. Now, they work in opposites. So vyana, I'll write that over here. Vyana and samana kind of work together. Vyana is more expansive, and samana is more contracting. It's around the belly. Udana is around the throat, and prana comes in and goes down. Apana is the lower part of the body. So if we have a lot of Vata imbalance, think about heat rises. When you have a lot of Vata or Pitta imbalance, prana is rising, and it may be not rising in a healthy fashion. You know, in yoga, a lot of people try to raise their prana. Prana naturally rises. The problem is we have blockages. So yoga is really about removing the blockages, and then the energy naturally goes up. So it's not about being the doer of pulling it up, but noticing where a person is blocked. And you can look at these 5 pranas and see where is it maybe not flowing as freely. So let's look at them in a little more detail. So Udana is in the throat, and Udana is allows for your communication, for singing, for sounds. It has something to do with the intake of food, and it when you feel tight in the throat or you can't express, this is a blockage here in this area, and this is a subtle area, a bridge between the mind and the heart, and it helps with draw energy up. Prana is coming in. Really, we take prana in through all of our senses, but it's a vital force that comes in. You know, we think of it through the breath mostly, and centered in the heart and lungs and chest. And it has to do with our overall energy level in the body. Samana has to do with digestion around the belly. And so a blockage in that area will reduce your supply of nutrients in the body, and it affects your digestive organs, liver, spleen, stomach, and pancreas. And apana is centered more in the intestines and has to do with downward flowing functions and elimination. So a problem with apana vayu could show up with problems in elimination, childbirth, menstruation, ejaculation, things that are downward flowing. Vyana pervades the entire body and the nervous system. So it's kind of the governor of all the other pranas. So when we're practicing yoga, a lot of what we're doing is we're balancing prana. So understanding how different postures, note where you're starting from and where you need to go. So that's where we use bandhas and breathing to engage. And I'm going to give you a demonstration of something. So imagine a water balloon. You're squeezing the bottom and the top of the water balloon. So where does the water go? If you squeeze the bottom and top of a water balloon, it goes to the center. And if you hold it for a while, it builds up pressure. And then what? You let go. And it moves. So that's part of the practice. When we engage our core and we keep a chin parallel and we breathe fully, we can build our energy in the center of the body. This is experienced a lot when we do Tadasana, and this can follow us through all of our postures. So we're balancing the nervous system through Langan and Brahmana, whether something is heating or cooling. And we're balancing the Vata by how we move the prana through the body. So balancing, that's done with the pranayama as well, and the bandhas in breath. Now, the goal here, too, is you want the prana and apana should meet at the heart. They should meet at the heart. What happens if we're doing too much of trying to pull everything up all the time, or Pitta people tend to lead with their head, we're pulling everything up and we're not having a balance in the heart, and we're bringing up heat with it. So when you bring up everything too quickly and it's not balanced, you could be pulling heat all the way up and getting overheated. This is a Pitta imbalance. And you can do too much of movement for a Vata, and it can get very windy, and you can get a Vata imbalance. If you don't pull the apana up enough and everything just stays very lagging downwards, you're going to have a Kapha imbalance. So it's kind of like knowing where you're starting from to know what you need. So like increases like, and the opposite brings balance. I just think, when you start to see yoga from this perspective of applying these concepts, you can more fine-tune your practice. You can refine what you want to accomplish in your practice and not cause imbalances. So that's a little bit about some of the Ayurvedic perspectives. Now, we would do this to create balance. We would do this to remove blockages so that we can have Veda, so that we can know beyond ordinary perception. The blockages, and when we're out of balance, creates stress, and we don't perceive properly. My teacher said, when you're stressed, you're good for nothing. When you're relaxed, you're good for everything. You have greater clarity, of greater energy, and whatever you focus on, your energy is going to follow that attention. We do all these practices for balance and harmony, and we want to say why. Why? Just to have a good body? Well, maybe for some of us, yeah. I mean, and that's all good and well. Having that gives you confidence, makes you feel better, and you're more vital and serving in the community. That's all great. We can keep going with it, though. We can keep going. And the ultimate holistic practice of yoga and Ayurveda is for the 4 pursuits of life. So the 4 pursuits of life, the Purusharthas, are your dharma, which is your right action, your duty, your purpose. And you want to be grounded in your Dharma. But how do you know what your Dharma is? So, you're going to sit and think about it. I don't think we come up with the right answers. That's not what yoga is suggesting. But to get in a state of Vata, to get into states of deep relaxation, in combining with knowing your nature, knowing who you are, what your tendencies are. So whether you have different amounts of different elements at birth, that's your tendencies. You perceive that way, you're in the world that way. Somebody who's a Kapha person is more naturally inclined to being a caregiver. They have more endurance. And somebody who's more of a Pitta person is a natural inclination towards leading and being a leader, running things, organizing things. They're more visually oriented. So being in visual arts or something like architecture, which is very logical and visual. And these are things that are according to a person's nature. A Vata person's mind is always moving. They're very creative. They are usually in positions where they're moving around, like being a teacher. They would not do well sitting in a 9-to-5 in an office. They are too variable all the time. So I'm giving examples. So understanding your nature and getting into states of deep clarity. So you're not coming from a conditioned place of the mind trying to figure something out. This helps you to live your Dharma. Now there's Dharma, there's also Artha. Artha is your prosperity. So, we talk of Dharma, I actually maybe jumped the gun a little. Dharma doesn't necessarily mean what you're doing for prosperity. Dharma is your ultimate purpose. Your Artha is your professional aptitudes, your economics, how you make a living, and that it shouldn't go against your Dharma. In other words, your Dharma is your ultimate purpose, and what you do for a living shouldn't go against it. That would be difficult. That would create conflict and stress. And then there's Kama. Kama is your enjoyment, your creative play, something that gives satisfaction to your mind and your desires. Again, we are supposed to have great pleasure in life, but it shouldn't go against your Dharma. And moksha. So if we're living our right Dharma, Artha, Kama, moksha should be automatic. Moksha is freedom, liberation. Liberation from what? So we come back to Patanjali and yoga, and Patanjali clearly states, the goal of yoga is to stop this busy mind, to get into states of Vata, to have union, so you're not distracted, to be free. But, what does that mean? To be free from what? I think sometimes, it's good to have these conversations to get a little more clarity. So what Patanjali means is you're being free from your thoughts. Free from your thoughts. And now, if you're freeing yourself from one thing, that means you're likely merging into something else. So once you free yourself of your thoughts, you can merge into who you really are minus your thoughts. This is unity. You merge into all the layers of who you are, which is a merging with all of the universe and nature. So I'm just going to pause for a moment and see if there are any questions. If I'm going in a direction that's useful for you guys, or if you have any questions for me. Does this make sense? So I'm going to give you a little example that I often do in my classes. So I'll give you an example of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha in your yoga class. Okay. So if we came into Warrior 1, I'm going to come in like a Vata person. Okay. And now I'm going to come in like a Pitta person. Okay. I'm exaggerating a little so you can see the difference. And now I'm going to do a Kapha person. So do you see that it's kind of an over-exaggeration, but people will come in and approach the practice. They're going to bring all of their Vata, Pitta, and Kapha into the practice. And so you can language your practice. You can bring some awareness to help. So a Vata person may come in and feel a little ungrounded and unsure of themselves. They're light. So you want them to feel grounded. Press the feet into the earth. Hug the inner thighs. Work with apana vayu, because for Vata, everything's flying upwards. So grounding a Vata person and allow them to unfold. Allow them to not be who they are, and they don't have to worry about doing anything wrong. Helping a Vata to feel safe and steady. Treating a Vata like a delicate flower. They are a little more fragile, they're a little more delicate, and they're like wearing their nervous system on the outside of their skin. They're more kinesthetic, how things feel. And they're sensitive to sound, so even the tone of your voice will affect how they feel. A Pitta person is like they're efforting, they're goal-oriented, so you might invite a Pitta person to let go of efforting, make it a little more of a dance. For a Pitta person, they want to know that you know what you're doing. They want to be your friend, and they want to see that you're competent. They value that, and they need visual. They're going to have a harder time closing their eyes. They learn through how they see what they see. And a Kapha person, you want to invite them to inhale fully, hold the breath, hold the position with a lot of breath, and feel that breath move through their whole body. And they will feel more energized, which will make them happy. So that's a little bit about working with yoga and Ayurveda. The nature of the mind also is governed by, where your prana is. Your nature will determine if your mind is really moving a lot, very active, trying to attain something, or if it's kind of lazy and sluggish versus being very pure and balanced. And that comes back to where I started earlier when we look at the definition of life, because Ayur means life. So it takes into account all aspects of a person. It's really total integration. When we looked at the body, the senses, the mind, and the soul. So Ayurveda is knowing life beyond ordinary perception. It's the integration then, the intelligent integration of the body, senses, mind, and soul. And we see that by stilling and quieting the mind, which we do through balancing the nervous system, through Langana, Brahmana, and the pranas. Where we focus our attention, we can either make the senses vitiated, or we can purify the senses in how we perceive, and this will affect the body. So how we perceive is going to affect whether we're successful or not in the practice, because we need to have right effort, right attitude, right relationship, and right faith. So Patanjali says in chapter 1, that the amount of faith that we have from within is what's going to help us in this practice, to know we cannot understand through ordinary perception. It's a revelation to know. And so that is the process of Ayurveda and yoga. The thing that can come in the way, what is one thing that can get in the way before you can, well, this is going to go down, this is going to take you up towards revelation, is of course the ego. The ego can get in the way. The ego is a form of mind, and we can have, We can be doing all these practices. So we want to really watch that. And that comes back to, there are three things, three causes of disease in the Ayurvedic perspective. And it's similar in yoga and the Patanjali. You see very similar concepts. So three causes of disease, and one cause is called prajna parad, which is similar to avidya in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, a mistake of the mind. Rope snake story. We think something that it's not. This is a root cause of disease. And so that happens here, can happen here when the senses are vitiated. And in its highest sense, we mistake our personalities for who we are. We build this personality through all of this hoo-ha up here, and we get lost in it. This is the root problem of when we say we don't know who we are. It doesn't mean we don't. We want to know our dharma, kama, moksha, artha. This helps keeps us grounded in dharma. When you know who you are, you can be grounded in all those things. But we get so lost in the personalities that we build. Yoga is a practice of recognizing it. Doesn't mean it has to go away completely. Doesn't mean you ever, sit in a cave and don't do anything. No, it just means you're aware of it. You're so aware of it. Doesn't mean you don't have it. You're still going to have it, but you're aware of it. It's kind of like you put on your clothes and you take, you don't get rid of your clothes. You still wear your coat, but you recognize you are not the coat. So same kind of idea. Prajna parad is a mistake of the mind, and its simplest form, it's kind of like you get a little information, like, they say soy is bad for you, and soy is good for you, and everyone starts eating a lot of it, and then 6 months later, hey, we can look at it today. Everyone's saying wearing a mask is not good for you. Oh, now wearing a mask is good for you. This is prajna parad. Like you get a little information and then you're just going to run with it. Oh, well, wait a minute. We don't know yet. But in a higher perspective, prajna parad is you're mistaking your personality for who you really are. It's a misidentification. It can be with objects. You can get in wrong relationship to things and to people. And also the third root cause of disease is not living according to your nature, parinama. And that's not living according to your genetic makeup, your doshic, your constitution, not living according to circadian rhythms, the time of the day, the season, your stage of life. This is a root. So these three things are the root cause of disease. And the definition of health, I can leave you with that. The definition of health is a person whose doshas are in balance, their tissues are well formed, their waste products are eliminating properly, and they have a bright and shining soul. It means they are seated in the seat of themselves. They know who they are, self-actualization. This is part of the definition of health. So it's a process. And all of us that are practicing yoga, I'm sure we have moments where there, and these epiphany, these states we experience, and gives us a more expansive view of life, and we can come into life and relationship in a more purposeful and harmonious way when you are so clear and so aware of who you are and who you're not, and your diet, your lifestyle, how you live your life will help you achieve all of the goals that you want and awaken to your highest potential. So that's my my presentation for today. I thank Yoga Loka for inviting me. Please visit their link and donate to their cause. If you'd like to learn more about Ayurveda, you can also contact me, whether it's through Facebook or my website, sign up for the newsletter, or if you have any specific questions. I'm doing virtual consultations. I have a few different guidebooks that I've made that come along with the different programs that I can do virtually right now. And when things get back up, we will be back up with lots of other things to do as well. So thanks again. Any questions? I'm happy to answer any questions. Questions? Okay. Well, enjoy the rest of the day and the next session. Enjoy this festival, and I hope it gives you insight, greater insight, reset on your button to build back better. Okay. Have a good one. Thank you, everybody.